The Lamiska Pirates. Chapter 4. Boarded. Report! Velsavas' bellow and ether-slap broke everyone free of their surprise. Reading two boarding shuttles, breaching Cargo Bay 13, the Batrix at Tactical called out. How? Where did they come from? Velsavas was already out of his seat, grabbing his sword out of the rack beside his chair. Not waiting for an answer, he bolted through the doors to the main corridor before they had even fully opened, with Boswick right behind him. It looks like they were on a ballistic path prior to lighting off their drives at the last minute. Somehow they knew what you would do? Tactical's voice sounded confused and completely unsure of his assessment in the captain's helmet. Impossible! He slid to a halt in front of the lift, only then realizing Yamasa was there with them, sword in hand. What in God's sweet voice are you doing here? He roared at her. Get back on the bridge! The slight figure pulled herself up to her full height, coming up to his shoulder. I am ranked 87th as of the last St. Malode. You need all the skilled hands you can find. But the door had already slid open, and she had slipped past him and planted herself in the back of the car. With a growl, he moved in with his commander and keyed the floor needed. The trip down was thankfully brief. The doors opened, and the three sprinted out into a short corridor that ended in an extra-wide set of doors. The hallway was lined with crew behind whatever cover they could find. They were taking shots through the open doors, but their targets were too far away to be hit. The three didn't slow, rushing through the doors into the larger hangar. Two cargo shuttles were parked in the middle of the floor, secured for transit still. Two large holes were in the lower half of the main doors to space, their edges still glowing red. The Terrans had already exited and were engaged with his crew and a surprising number of civilian passengers. The Terrans, and one ease-length that was. It was clear that none had gotten a shot past the attackers' shields, as all the pirates were up and engaging the defenders that outnumbered them at least 5-1. Swords were swinging through the air between the defenders and the Terrans like blades of a shredder. And all of the boarders still stood. In fact, even as the three from the bridge rushed forward, defenders started to fall, their blood starting to flow on the deck. 5-1 was poor odds against Easlank, to say nothing of Terrans. Velsavas spotted their captain, smiling and laughing as he ran a sword through the belly of another noble passenger, Savanol Tarakas, if you remembered correctly. With a yell, Velsavas leapt over the bleeding form, swinging his sword in a vicious slice at the attacking captain's neck. The Terran laughed as he brought his shield across himself, knocking Velsavas' blade aside easily, his own sword sweeping up to slice towards Velsavas' groin, forcing the row to leap back. The Terran didn't give the Devane a chance to recover. Stepping in to press the attack, the swords began to weave in a mad dance that flicked through the space between them, almost too fast to see. The blade sliced through the air, singing two different notes of a deadly song. Velsavas pressed his attack, working to pull the captain out from the middle of his people. He hoped he could visibly take the pirate down, thereby stealing the fire out of the rest of the boarders. As he twisted under a thrust from his adversary, he caught a glimpse of Yamasa throwing herself into a spinning slash cut at the ease-lank, only to pull an almost impossible change of direction to slide under the invader's swinging of his massive shield, thereby confirming that her blade wasn't just for decoration. But then Velsavas had to concentrate on his enemy. A few more passes at each other, and they were in the clear. He could feel the attention of friend and foe turning to the captain-on-captain battle. They paused for a moment, circling each other. With a flick of his head, the Terran captain's helmet retracted. Well, 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 it looks like the good Capitan wishes to try his hand at defeating me. He tapped his chest twice, and his suit took on the image of the outfit he'd been wearing on the bridge. He traced a cross on his bare chest. There you are, mi amigo. There is my heart. Try your best to pierce it. Velsavas nudged his helmet to retreat. You have no heart, Terran Pesnos. Only a rotted bit of flesh that never knew love or honor. I will enjoy slicing it from your dying chest. Captain Montoya staggered back slightly, his shield hand clutching his chest. You wound me, Mimiako. I have known many loves, and I intend to know a new one here shortly. His sword flicked to where Yamasa, her own helmet already back, stood near the ease-lank, both watching the exchange carefully. Only over my cooling body as my soul races up to join God. Velsavas brought his sword up in intricate salute. His mind was already deep in the aether, feeling the song around them, guiding them. Montoya shook his head, his long hair flowing out behind him. Tossing his shield to one side, he gave a sharp nod. Begin. The two moved together as if partners in an intricate dance. Their swords were in almost constant contact, sliding against each other before flicking away, only to rush together again. Their bodies moved against each other, each looking for an advantage, trying to force the other into a mistake. Their combat quickly became more intense and more passionate, each needing to best the other for more than just victory. Velsavas' sword suddenly broke pattern, his hilt slamming down towards Montoya's exposed shoulder. The Terran rocked back to take the blow on his chest, and the rising foot slammed into the pirate captain's exposed crotch. Montoya's hands dropped to cover it just as Velasavas brought his sword back against his opponent's face. Montoya dropped down immediately, but it was only to roll back out of engagement. Quickly springing to his feet, his sword back on guard, he brought his other hand up to his face, carefully touching the freely bleeding wound. Looking at the blood in almost surprise for a moment, he then licked the blood off his fingers, causing many in the cargo hold to shudder. "You cut my face!" As everyone watched, the blood stopped flowing, almost as if shut off. Velasavas suppressed a shudder as he worked to catch his breath. He knew what that meant. "That's not very nice of you. Now I will have to explain to all my women why my beautiful face is scarred." He tisked as he started moving forward again. "But enough playtime. Let us end this, Jess?" He nodded again. "Begin." As his adversary moved forward, Velasavas could hear the ether start to change, confirming his fears. This wasn't just a standard Darren. This wasn't even just a sentinel. This was a full ranger. He dredged his mind for what he had been told on how to best a ranger singer of the song, even as he carefully fell back, working to keep the Terran at bay. But this time Montoya was just toying with him, allowing the row to try and escape the pirate song, knowing that it was all but impossible. And at the moment of his choosing, with an all but invisible series of slashes, he knocked Velasavas' sword from his hands, driving the row captain to his back, right in front of Yamasa and the Eastland commander, as almost the entire bay gasped in surprise and horror. Montoya laid his sword at the throat of the fallen row. "You said only over your cooling body as your soul fled to your god. I am an honorable man. I will give you your wish." As he raised his sword, the air was rent by a scream. Yamasa leapt over Velasavas, her sword driving Montoya back a step. "No! You shall have neither of us!" She launched into a mad attack. Velasavas surged to his feet. "No!" But he was too late. The laughing pirate only let her start her attack before he sent her sword flying as well. However, he didn't knock her to the ground. Instead, he grabbed the stunned young girl and spun her against him. His one hand came up and claimed her breast through her suit as his blade slid almost sensually against her exposed neck, forcing her chin up, her panicked eyes trying to catch a view of her captor. She felt him start to chuckle from his chest and hips pressed against her. "So tell me, sweet Novia, were you trying to arouse me with that display?" "Because it worked." He buried his nose in her hair and inhaled. She tried to pull away, but his hand gripped tighter, causing her to cry out in pain as a drop of blood started tracking down her neck. "No, no, mi Novia. You are going nowhere I do not wish you to." Straightening up, his voice rose to be heard in the entire bay. "Now, you fought well, but you are defeated. Unless you wish to see more blood, including the sweet senorita's." His blade lifted, exposing more of her neck so all could see the thin, dark red blood trail against her blue skin. "Drop your swords." At Vagra's grunt, he looked to the Eastland, who jerked his chin at the walls of the hold where those with pulse weapons were still standing. "Ah, yes, and your other weapons." He stared hard at Velasavas. When the row captain didn't back down after several seconds, Montoya's hands released Yamasa's small but firm breast and instead slid behind her to the back of her neck. Gripping and lifting, he easily raised her until her toes were dangling off the floor. He shifted his blade so it laid vertically against her chest, the tip pressing into her chin. As her hand slid to the naked blade, a small drop of blood started to track down the silver blade from her chin. His voice was barely more than a whisper as his eyes bore into Velasavas's. "Now." Velasavas's shoulders dropped as his hands came up. "Enough. We yield. The ship is yours. I only beg you take what you will of our cargo and supplies, but leave my crew and passengers alone." He turned to look at the rest of the crew and passengers in the hold, his voice hardening. "We yield. Drop your weapons." Slowly, the swords and pulsers slid to the deck, most passengers mirroring the crew and kicking them away. He then turned back to Montoya. The Terran captain chuckled. "You are really going to have to work on your begging, mi amigo." He pulled his sword away slightly as he lowered Yamasa, forcing her to her knees at his feet. He brought his sword to his lips and carefully licked the blood off the side and tip before facing Velasavas again. "We will take everything we want, including any of your crew and passengers that we like. And if you are very, very lucky, we will leave you a working ship and enough fuel to get to the next base." As shivers and moans went through the bay, he continued, "You should have taken my offer. Now the price will be higher." The Terran looked down as he ran his hands through Yamasa's hair, then grabbed a fistful of it, jerking her head back. "Much higher." He ran the finger of his hand, still holding the sword, across her cheek, causing her to shiver and close her eyes. His head snapped back up as Velasavas took a step forward. "Bring all of your guests here. Unlock all staterooms. The faster you comply, mi amigo, the less upset I and my crew will be. And if you are very fast, we'll have all we want before my ship catches up, which will mean I won't have to bring more of my crew over to help search." Velasavas gritted his teeth as he gave a low bow. "As you wish." A little over 3 hours later, Thelsavas and Boswick watched the Terran ship slip into the aether. Boswick reached up and patted the row at the latter's growl of annoyance. You could have done no more. In fact, if it hadn't been for him guessing you were going to try cutting inside the ring, we would have gotten away. This ship was not meant to take on a ship like that. You did more than could be asked for in times like these. Thelsavas gave a snort and looked down at the Venex in his bandaged shoulder. You look like you gave more. You still haven't gotten around to telling me how that happened. Boswick looked around quickly before answering. Okay, just recrew here. One of the damned passengers decided to take on that black monster of theirs. Only it came at the Terran from behind, trying to take him by surprise. I got there just in time to intercept the Terran's backswing with my shoulder instead of it going into the idiot's head. His captain gave a snorting chuckle as he slid into his station and picked up his tall drink. The things we do for those idiots. He frowned at the light, silvery blue liquid before grimacing and taking a sip. It was Boswick's turn to chuckle as he slid into his station. Don't worry. They've assured me that they will be making up more ice as soon as they can to replace what the pirates took. They better, that's how it's all but mumbled, sparkling light chuckles on the bridge. Okay, Nav, get our course laid in. I want to get to Velsock Station as soon as possible. As Gilves responded back with an affirmative, he grimaced and took another sip. He was not looking forward to reporting this. His eyes were caught by a flashing light on the alt-pilot station. On the brighter side, he thought, I don't have to deal with the Yamasa causing any more problems.